and the channel is about the adventures I get up to now that I've retired. So after a sort of the traumas of the alternator, or more accurately the batteries that weren't charging, and a couple of abortive attempts to get craned out, I finally was able to pull alongside. The process here is that the boat is towed or pulled into the slings so that there's an accurate balance. Obviously, if you try and lift it out of the water without it being balanced, it weighs 15 tons. It's going to slide if it's not balanced properly. So the idea is to get it balanced properly. Being lifted out is a nerve-wracking time for any boat owner. When your boat's sort of swinging around like a conker in mid-air, it does give you all sorts of weird thoughts. But Joe, the crane driver, and Brian, the banksman, a professional, they've done this dozens and dozens of times. One might ask what on earth I'm doing lifting the boat out of the water. It cost £500 to get it out and get it put back in again, so what's the point of it all? Well, firstly, I wanted to inspect the hull. It's 2 years since it's been out of the water, and the boat's quite old. It was built in 1989, so it's getting on a bit. I wanted to treat the base and the hull with bitumen. That process is called blacking, so I wanted to black the hull. The anodes, which are sort of sacrificial, usually magnesium patches that are welded on the side of the boat, they are a weak point, so if there's any rust to be had, any electrical rust to be had, the anodes go first. So I wanted some new anodes installing, and I wanted to have a bike rack welded to the back of the boat. In addition to that, I just wanted to tart it up a bit, and while it was out of the water I was able to have a look at the alternator and do some other upgrades, which I'll talk about in a separate video. one of the first jobs to get on with is to actually clean the hull off. Now the best way to do this, or the best time to do this, is while the hull's still wet. So Brian got on this straight away. If you'd leave it to dry, then all the weed and the crud that sticks to the hull sets like concrete, and it makes it much harder to get off. So Brian set about cleaning off the hull. They wouldn't let me do it. They didn't trust me with their big petrol driven pressure washer. In hindsight, I was quite grateful for that, because Brian got absolutely soaked, but did a great job. And although I did have to go and scrape it and wire brush it afterwards when it was dry, it did get most of the rubbish off the hull. Well, this is what it looks like now it's dried out, and I have to say, it looks pretty good. There's this here, which is a bit rusty, and looks as if its water's got underneath the previous coat of blacking. But as we come out from under the trees, you can perhaps see a bit better. There's not a lot of pitting. There's a bit of this stuff with, I think, is sort of canal crud, like barnacles. I suppose the canal version of barnacles. And there's bits like this. Presumably that's where the fender has rubbed over time. It's rubbed the blacking off than it's gone rusty. But that's above the waterline anyway, so another bit here, careless manoeuvring through locks. And this here, I don't know if you can make it out, that's looks to me, it's either where two coats of bitumen have been put on, one on top of a new coat on top of a wet coat where it hadn't dried, so an overlap, or it's where moisture's got beneath the in fact, I'm going to say it's a heavy coat, because there's some runs there, and I think it didn't dry out enough before the next coat was put on. So but other than that, and obviously around the bow where it takes quite a bit of hammer under there, it's in pretty good nick. And that orange isn't rust, it's red oxide. So I'm going to crack on, give it its first coat this morning, and see where we get to. Scraping first though. Because of the cool temperatures, it took the lower coat a couple of days to cure. But once it was cured, I then started to do the area above the waterline, and I also gave the lower part of the hull a second coat. Incidentally, the cloth that's hanging from the hole in the hull, that hole is my drain plug from the sink in the kitchen, the galley, and the cloth is to stop water running down the side of the hull. Once you've seen one hull being painted, or even just a section of the hull being painted, you've seen it all. But I also wanted to clean the rust off the gunnels and give it some undercoat, give it some primer, and also the tunnel stripes around the back of the boat needed touching up. There are some other paint jobs needed, mainly in the bows, but they'll have to wait until some warmer weather comes along. Right, well this is a red coat on, well obviously the red section of the tunnel stripes. We've just got out of pretty awful storm, lasted about 4 days with incredibly strong winds and loads of rain, so I've not been able to paint it, and I've got about 5 days before I've asked for a crane back in the water, so I want to get this red done so that it's got time to cure. I can give it a couple of coats, maybe one tomorrow as well, so it's got time to cure before it goes back in the water. With the alternator, incidentally, again I haven't recorded any of it because it was all not fraught, but it was all a bit full on. So what we actually had, I could excite the alternator and get it to work, but that wasn't the point. I didn't want to, and I was doing that by pressing the preheat button, but I didn't, that kind of smacked that things weren't right, so I took all the instrument panel off and took it to the auto electrician down the yard, and he found a dry solder joint on the back of one of the circuit boards, so he resoldered that and it's all hunky-dory now. So the alternator works when it's supposed to, the rev counter works when it's supposed to, and the buzzer, the preheat buzzer, works when it's supposed to. So that's all sorted. I don't think this paintwork will win any prizes, but it is only the first coat, so maybe when I get a second coat on it might look a bit better, but at the moment it's looking a bit ropey, if I'm honest. Never mind. Just as an aside, this black stripe here used to be red, and then I realised a month or so ago that the bottom of it, sort of up to about here, was always underwater when the boat was in the water. And I asked the guys here if that was okay, and they said, well, yeah, you don't want the swim underneath to be exposed, otherwise you lose propulsion. So it was designed like that. It just hadn't been painted like that. So I thought, well, if it's in the water all the time, as far as tunnel strikes go, it makes no difference what colour it is. So I've blacked it with bitumen to help protect it a little bit. It was showing signs of corrosion when I got it out. You can't see it now, but it was pitted a little bit. The paintwork was a bit ropey anyway, so I thought, well, it's better to have it protected than pretty. So I painted the bottom, what, 3 inches? With bitumen to protect it from the water. I think once you get the red done, you can't actually notice that it's any different, apart from my painting's a bit ropey. As I say, this is the first coat, and hopefully tomorrow I can get a second one on and it'll look a bit better. I'm going to concentrate on this painting, finish off the blacking, then give the blacking, move it to the side again, and we'll look at that. There we go. I've got some bitumen left, so I shall give the waterline another coat, and as soon as possible get that to cure before Friday. A few runs around the other side, but don't worry too much about that. So yeah, I'm going to concentrate on servicing the engine, get the engine all working honky-dory, and give it a proper service, not just change the oil. The valve clearances are clicking a little bit, so I should check all those. Change all the fuel filter. I think that's it for that. So now it's the cream. Right, now we're on with the cream. Two different types of paint. Not that that's important, but the cream is smooth Amorite, and the red was International Top Lack. As I say, it doesn't matter. It's not important as long as they're good enamel paints. Incidentally, on this rubbing strip, I'm being a bit slapdash because that's going to be painted black. So, and you can see just here where I was a bit too hasty in getting the brush out of the tin, and I got strings of paint and the wind caught it. So, blowing it all over the back of the boat. Right, I'm going to move you again. this paint isn't going on as easily as the red did. I'm just getting a skin on it too quickly, or quite quickly, so that when I go to smooth it over I'm actually doing the opposite. So I've either got to put it on thin and then just come back to it on another day, or hope the brush marks paint out, because right now it's looking quite horrible. But hey ho. Move you around a bit more. Now, I mentioned having new anodes fitted, and here's Joe welding them on. First of all, you grind off the paint and any rubbish, any crud that's attached to the hull. Then you tack the anode on and then set about welding it on properly. Well, this is one of the anodes that I had welded on yesterday. And magnesium, and they're sort of sacrificial parts that prevent electrostatic current stealing the hull, basically. They disappear quicker than steel. That's one. That's an even older one. Incidentally, the little bits just on the base plate is where Joe fixed one of his welding electrodes to make so that he could get a current. If you don't complete the circuit, it won't weld. So he ground a little bit of this away so that he could make contact. Right, well, that's the second coat on all four. I've got enough paint left to probably give them another couple of coats, and then probably to give a fifth coat around the waterline. So, and then that'll be the blacking done. The rest of the boats had 3 coats. So then, to the bike rack. This is nothing more complicated than a tow ball, the sort of thing you'd have for a trailer or a caravan. And the bike rack is simply attached to that. Most of you will have seen them on the back of cars, for instance. First of all, Joe grinds off all the paint, both on the boat and on the tow ball. Then after a few attempts to get it lined up to make sure it's nice and level,
I just want to get it
right
on the tie.
He sets to welding it to the hull. And it's as simple as that. And there it is, a finished article. It's a bit of a game changer on a small boat like this. So I think that's it for this one. If you found it sort of a bit informative, interesting, and slightly entertaining, then think about subscribing to the channel. It all helps. If you want to know what I get up to next, then click on the notification button, ding the old bell, and if you have enjoyed it, or even marginally enjoyed it, then give us a thumbs up. Okay, till next time then, see ya.